Hello? All right, sweet. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Tommy, and I'm a senior at Texas A&M University. Whoop! I was born in Korea and moved to Houston when I was 7. Became a follower of Christ around that time as well. Before going into my testimony, I just wanted to share my favorite story in the Bible, David and Goliath. I love the story of David so much that I named my puppy after him. David was an ordinary kid that was obedient to his father. David was an ordinary kid that was obedient to his father that ultimately helped him to develop skills to defeat Goliath. He was small, but he stuck to the basics and was ready to be a servant of God when the opportunity came. I connected to this story because growing up, I was usually not the biggest kid in the class. I was 4'10" until sophomore year of high school, but what kept my head up was the fact that God doesn't care what you look like or how tall you are. He uses everybody for his kingdom no matter what. My first mission trip was to Honduras when I was in 5th grade. During the trip, there was a missionary with a gift of prophecy at the site. She started asking me about my prayer requests, and I explained to her that I wanted to grow taller. She prayed for me and told me that even though I was not big physically, I will be a spiritual giant to be used to glorify God. I honestly didn't know how to respond to that because at the time I just wanted to be taller, but I was offended that she iterated the fact that I was indeed small. After that trip, I went to 5 more mission trips before going to college. Every time I went on a mission trip, I received overwhelming compassion of wanting to be at a mission site. But a lot of the adults and my parents just brushed it off, saying that it's just a spiritual high, so I didn't think much of it. After going to college, I focused so much on wanting to be successful that I stopped putting my time to go to mission trips. Last summer was a vital summer for me in terms of my career. Long story short, I didn't hear back from any of the companies I interviewed with, and it felt very empty. During that time, I got a call from my mom asking if I wanted to go on a mission trip to Germany, which the main focus will be serving the refugee camps there. At first, I wanted to keep interviewing for internships, but while praying for clarity, I felt guilt and embarrassment because I realized how selfish my prayers to God had become. I immediately repented and called my mom and told her I wanted to go. After a couple weeks, I got a call from my dad and said that there was a guy on my team that wanted to hire me as an intern at his company. Only condition was that I would go to that Germany mission trip. God didn't need to give me that internship, but he loves me and he loves to let me know that in unexpected ways. I was reminded how important it was to keep God first in my priorities. First day of the mission trip, I got this weird feeling and thought I wanted to come back here as a missionary. I realized my ability to quickly befriend strangers really helped me to reach out to these people. Like I mentioned before, I moved from Korea when I was 7. The first couple of years were very difficult for me because I had to find new friends while also having to assimilate to the new culture and environment. Little did I know, God was using the challenging times as an opportunity for me to grow and learn. I think I learned how to overcome awkward situations and using that to quickly befriend someone. If you guys have spent at least 10 minutes with me, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's still not too late to hear my awful puns. Also, the passion that the refugees had for K-pop really helped me to easily approach them, since most of them wanted to talk to me and to ask me about the Korean culture. Last summer, I mainly helped with the actual campsites, helping out with games, praise, and spent a lot of my time to have fellowship with the youth there. Every day in Germany was very unique. We were consistently meeting new people while keeping up with familiar faces. There were some camps where they didn't let us in, and even though it discouraged us at first, we tried to focus on the camps that did invite us and welcomed us. But I started seeing limitations with myself, and I found myself relying on God and my team members for support. Amidst all this, I was reminded once again how powerful music was, especially if communication was a problem. When our team led worship, some people would come and watch us, and even though they didn't know what we were singing about, I guess they caught onto the emotions that we were wanting to convey. This worship session led to a lot of open hearts and friendships. Another main ministry I was involved in was taking pictures. I got into photography to capture key moments of my life, but using it to capture joyful moments while doing God's work was on a completely different level. I didn't expect that God would use a simple photo to bring small joy into people's lives. And here's a couple photos I took last summer. And they're really big on like Taekwondo. They just thought that it was really cool. And at this campsite, like the guys didn't want to be in the picture. So it's like all the moms and the kids. and then there's some of the team members that I went with. And those are some of the kids that I was just playing with. Yeah, so. Yeah, so really cool thing that happened during this trip was that one of the missionaries said the exact same thing as a missionary from Honduras. That even though I was small, I would be a spiritual giant for God. This still offended me a little bit, but I took it better this time. This really got me thinking that maybe it's just not one of those spiritual highs, but God is really calling me. This past summer, the director wanted me to see the background work of the mission. So I helped out with a forum that hosted many missionaries working for the refugees. As we were doing follow-up visits, we got to a camp where they were fasting, not for Jesus, but for their own religion. What was incredible was that they invited us in and told us that they wanted to express their gratitude by cooking dinner for us. I didn't know this at the time, but a Muslim inviting someone into their house is a huge deal for their culture. It means various things like trust, friendship, and a start to wanting to develop a deeper relationship. Second thing that shocked me was that they wanted to cook for us during their fasting week. The fact that they were willing to sacrifice their own desires to accommodate for us touched our team greatly. After dinner, we sat down in their living room, and our director delicately started sharing about Jesus and his love for us. We sang hymns for them and answered any questions they had. I didn't know the language, so I didn't really understand what was happening. But later I learned that they had said that their misconceptions for Christians had changed for the better. They always thought Christians were mean and judgmental hypocrites that acted like they were above everyone. Then they started sharing their religion and faith. A lot of them were intrigued by Christianity because even though they read Quran really religiously, they never had a relationship with the so-called God in their book. It was new for them to be able to have a relationship with God like we do and understand the fact that Jesus, who saved us and was there when we were created, to love us so much that he died just to be with us again. Seeing the mutual respect develop between the Muslim people at the campsite and us as Christians was very eye-opening. I thought if this is how all differences were handled, we would have solved world peace by now. From these past 2 summers in Germany, the biggest thing for me was that the local missionaries, who were also technically still refugees, were sacrificing their needs and wants to spread God's word to others that need it. Seeing the incredible amount of faith they had in God for even such minuscule tasks made me reconsider how I was living my life. I looked back at how I spent my days and felt a strong passion to be with those local missionaries and help out the best I can. After coming back from the mission trip, the first sermon from my pastor was that it was important to keep the spark we get from retreats, mission trips, and from other ways God speaks to us. I'm continuing to pray and asking my house church and my pastor to pray for me. And since you guys are also my family now, please pray for my future as well. Fast forwarding to now, I still feel the same passions, and the spark has now grown to a small fire. Of course, I want to live a normal life with a wife and kids and a steady job, etc. But God has blessed me abundantly so far that I feel the urge to spread God's blessings and to love others, in my case, to refugees. There's nothing wrong with being a missionary at the workplace and at school, because that's still really great. But when God calls us to go, like in Matthew 28:19, we should probably go if we don't want to end up in the belly of a big fish like Jonah. In terms of my future plans, I'm hoping to be back in Germany next summer for 7 months to serve the refugees and do my best to show how much God loves them. Attending ANF for the past 10 weeks, I loved seeing the passion and the energy this community has, and I was amazed that everyone was serving so selflessly. So continuing that in your workplace and whatever you choose to do, I encourage you guys to do it joyfully while putting God first, even though the task might seem small and meaningless. Because when God suddenly tells you to go, you'll be ready to go. One of my favorite authors, Bob Goff, said this in one of his books, Loved Us. He said, "I used to think you had to be special for God to use you, but now I know you simply need to say yes." If you guys have any calling to go do something outside of your comfort zone, I strongly encourage you guys to read this book. And lastly, I also wanted to take this time to thank you guys for accepting me into this community and showing me so much love and care during this short period of time. I got to observe what a community of Christ-centered people looks like and learn so much from it. I also want to thank Yalu House Church for taking me in and immediately welcoming me. Without you guys, I don't think I would have had such enjoyable and memorable Friday nights. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you guys again when I come back to Dallas.